All right, welcome everybody back to another Monday Expert Interview. I am Dave Cooper, and today we have a great show for you. We have Ed Brady coming on the show from Home Builders Institute, and Greg Ugalde from the NAHB is also going to be on the show. We are going to talk about workforce development. We're going to talk about what's happening in the world with lumber prices. How are we moving forward? How are we bringing the youth into our industry? How? We're tired of being in last place. Like I always say, Tesla should be charging our houses, not the other way around. So with that said, at Dave Cooper Live, we are bringing you the people and the processes that are building it better. Our guests and topics include experts in building systems to building science, building codes, and the tech used to build it better. And today, as always, we are seeking out the best and the brightest in construction and discovering all of the ways that innovative buildings come to life. I love it. This is going to be such a great show, and it's going to be such an honor. We have two really great minds in our industry that are helping to drive it forward each and every day, and it is always an honor and a privilege to have them on this show to tell us what is happening all the way at the top. So why don't we start off with Mr. Greg Ugalde. Mr. Greg Ugalde, welcome back to the show, my friend. How are you?
Great to see you. Great to see you. After an exciting weekend, I heard, climbing mountains and everything else with the family. Good for you.
Yeah, we took a little time this weekend, 2,000 feet up the mountain with three kids and Jennifer and I. So we had a great time and a beautiful view looking down on the valley. You know what's great about being up there? You really do get a bird's eye view on how much building is happening in this country. Just looking down into the valley in Idaho. Like you can just see it everywhere. And, you know, it's so important to have this conversation today because the only way we're going to keep building quality buildings, you know, and delivering healthier product to people is by bringing the youth into this industry. How are we getting the youth into this industry? How are we getting more trades into this industry? How do we make it fun? How do we make it cool? How do we make it exciting? We're going to talk all about that today, right?
That's right, David. And you know, every time that we speak, that's a subject that comes up, right? The age of our workforce and what we need to do in this country to expand it. And today we have a good friend of mine, and Ed Brady is the president and CEO of HBI, and always hustling. He is one of the most active people. He's been a senior officer at NAHB. He's climbed the ranks. He's come from Illinois, and now he is right in DC because he has to head that up. But he travels the country just like we are all doing. And he has a lot to add to this in a very clear perspective of where we have to go, and has some great tools to do it. And why don't we bring Ed right in so that he can explain a little, Dave?
Right. Let's do that. And then Ed, thank you and welcome to the show with Greg Ugalde and I. This is an honor and a privilege.
No, thanks for having me, guys. Good to see both of you.
Yeah, it's great. It's great to have you on. So you've been supportive of this industry for a long time, right? Just like Greg said, you climbed the ranks at NAHB, which is volunteer. A lot of people don't know that people are volunteering their time to protect our rights as builders, to help us build better, to fight the codes that maybe don't make sense for home builders and what have you. And now you've moved from there, and you said, I'm gonna actually help educate the world. At the Home Builders Institute, we're going to drive this message forward. Can you tell us a little bit about that? But first, Ed, we want to know everything about you from the moment you were born to this very moment in time. And don't leave out any of the good stuff from the hospital, or we will call your mother. In fact, Greg will call your mother.
I know his mom. I've had dinner with his mom, so she'll definitely get on the phone with us right now if we need her.
You prepped me, so I was 9.1 coming out of the womb. She yells at me every time we talk about it, but actually, it's great to be here. But so, as you guys, I've been advocating for this industry for 35 years. Right out of college, I came to Washington D.C. and I got a little of my political juices flowing here. And then I went back to a family business 35 years ago to join my dad, and been building houses ever since, and been advocating for the industry. First, water tap-on fees was my first big political battle, and advocating for the industry and housing affordability back 35 years ago. And as you suggested, came up through the ranks, started at the local level and became local president and state president of the HBA, and then ultimately in 2016, chairing with the senior officers, chairing NAHB. And so, I've advocated for the industry for those 35 years, from anywhere from codes to, as you said, tap fees or lumber prices or labor issues or taxes or whatever that may be, in order to advocate for the industry. And as I traveled in 2016, the country, as Greg's doing now or was doing prior to COVID and starting to do again, and Dave, you're all over the country, learned that it's a tough business. I knew that going in, but learned that if you add this labor crisis that we're all suffering to that mix of not even being able to sell and produce, but produce in a timely and affordable way, the labor crisis really became a passion. And we have a bad perception. And frankly, I felt the need to help change that perception of this industry. All of us as professionals love this industry, but back home, the educators and the career counselors and the college admissions counselors and all those people had a really poor perception of what this industry has to offer. And so I've been advocating for many years, but in the last 2.5 at HBI, the Home Builders Institute, to bring that young generation into the trades, to make sure that they understand that you can have a good career path and make a good living, and in fact, learn a profession, learn a trade, but then also become your own boss, become an entrepreneur. The opportunities in this industry are endless. You work as hard as you want to, and you reap the benefits from this. And so the intro, though, I started out in grade school, really cleaning out sump pumps, and then tarring basements, and then framing houses, and ultimately became my own general contractor. And that's how I think I became a better builder, is coming up through those ranks of learning a trade, learning the profession from the ground up. And so that's what I'm doing now, is trying to bring a lot of youth into the industry, a lot of underserved, at-risk youth that don't have that traditional career path that many of this country thinks is the right path, to bring them into a good career path where they can make a good living, raise a family, and be a productive part of society, along with transitioning military and veterans, second chance citizens that have spent time involved in the justice system, but also have a lot to offer and work with their hands. And so bringing them into the industry. And again, ultimately, if we want to make up this difference, we got to bring kids from the 6th and 7th and 8th grade all the way through high school, right into the job of construction. And so we're trying to change the perception and get that back into the high schools. With my generation, with my hairline, you can tell it was shop class back then. Now it's career education, but we need to change the attitude and the perception of our industry with the young people.
Yeah, we definitely do. I always say, Ed, that, the difference between our generation and today's generation is technology.
Yeah.
When we were growing up, and people that know the show have heard this before, it didn't matter. You were going to be a doctor, you were going to be, a mechanic or a carpenter or what have you. You didn't hang out together. But in today's world, that's not the same thing. They not only, they don't maybe not hang out together, but they try and kick each other's butt on Fortnite every night. Right? So they're communicating in a way that we didn't have that opportunity to do, and bringing the youth back in, like you said, whether it is high schools and trade schools, veterans, folks that may have been incarcerated, had been a little down on their luck somewhere along the way. Right. They're all interested in the same thing. And how do we capture their attention and show them how cool our industry really is? Because technology is now starting to come out, and it's starting to change. So,
go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, before we hop into it, I got a question for you. First of all, we are live on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. Ed Brady, why are we live on Twitch?
Why are we live on Twitch?
Yeah, I love this question because that's where the young people are.
That's where young people are.
That's right. Well, listen, they play their video games. Twitch is a huge virtual reality gaming platform. It's like the Facebook of our time for them. And so we live stream to Twitch, and we're all Greg Ugalde joins us from Twitch now. But they're not coming to us, so we're going to them. So
I think that answers the question right there, Dave. Is we got to get them engaged in the way they like to learn and the way they like to socialize. And so, one silver lining, if there was, with COVID, it taught us in the education and the trades a need to access those students where they go. And so, as you suggest, they're on all these social medias. And so, because of COVID and the distant learning, and the hybrid learning that we had to create, is we've been able to access a lot more young people. And so we're doing simulations through virtual reality, through IR, through all these artificial intelligence. And so it's helped us become better. Now, I say that technology is a huge part of the education, but we also, as a carpenter, I trained under a master carpenter. As a carpenter, hands-on approach, like playing the piano. The more you play, the better you get at it. And the same carpenter, you got to work with your hands. It's got to be repetitive. So we've really moved into this hybrid, blended learning atmosphere that can really make a better tradesperson as we go forward.
Yeah, for sure. It really does. So let's walk through HBI. Tell us about how the organization's set up, and let's talk about some of the things that you're doing. We don't see a whole lot out there about HBI, in the circles we're running. So this is a great opportunity to say, hey, this is who we are, this is how we do it, and this is how you get involved. If you're a youth, if you're on Twitch and you want to be in our industry, this is your chance to get involved right here. So can you walk us through some of that?
Well, yeah, let me first say we first started under the umbrella of National Association of Home Builders. So we are the premier education, residential training educator in the country. We partner with NAHB. In the early 80s, we branched off into our own independence because we do a lot of government contracting. And NAHB is a 501c6. We're a 501c3 nonprofit. And so because of those government contracts, we're independent, but partner significantly with all the home builders associations and the members throughout the country to try and bring that skills training back into the community. So, but we train 15 to 20,000 students a year. That's growing because we're getting back into the high schools. But we started under the Job Corps program, and that was training 16 to 24-year-old at-risk youth that come to a resident setting like a community college. They train for 8 to 12 months. Many of them are still getting their GED, but they're learning electrical or they're learning carpentry. We have an 85% placement. So when those students are done, they have a credential recognized by the U.S. Department of Labor that gives them credibility to the workforce, to those employers that are looking for good employees. And so that's one of our programs. We have a transitioning military, train 10 military bases throughout the country. Those soldiers, sailors, Marines that are getting out, again, trying to give them a skill and a step up, like yourself, a step up to going out and finding a productive job and a career path that gives them that partnership in the community. And then we train in high schools. We license our program with Habitat, with Youth Build USA, and all the Youth Build programs throughout the country. We do some in corrections and juvenile justice. We do some training behind the wall out in the community with juvenile justice and probation. So we're serving a lot of underserved and giving them a path that gives them that productive society, part of society.
And I think this is where people really need to know what you are doing out there, because just being behind the walls for incarcerated people or soldiers who don't. When we were talking about before the show, I was in for 10 years, and I'm sure a lot of people out there listening can relate. You spend enough time in the military, you forget how to match a tie and a dress shirt, let alone with shirts and boots and all that other stuff. And I think that's very powerful. Are you seeing are you seeing a pickup in the amount of high schools getting back to the trades?
Yeah.
Right. Because a lot of high schools lost their way on it or stopped doing it. And now, are you seeing the trend go the other way?
We absolutely are. I mean, it's a slow burn, I would say. It's, the industry has to help itself. We have to do it at a parochial level. We have to go to those school boards as the industry and say, we need these jobs. We need people to fill these jobs. I mean, there's 300 empty jobs in construction today. And so the idea that path for 20, 30, 40% of high school students, whatever you want to pick, that don't want to take that 4-year college degree or even 2-year, get in college debt, come out with a degree or not, with that $30,000 or $40,000 worth of debt, and can't find a $30,000 a year job. I got carpenters that are leaving our training programs making $25, $28, $30 an hour just out of the training. So we have to change that perception. And I think it is beginning to happen at the schools. We're working on a program, a short curriculum that ties across STEM that will go into the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. We're working with the industry to create that so we can introduce this at the younger age. So when they get into 9th grade, they have an interest or they know it's there, and that hopefully we can capture them before they go somewhere else. Yeah,
no, hopefully you can. And I'm seeing some of it come back, but tell me, the complexion of the students that you're getting, are you seeing any change between the ration of men and women coming into the industry? Are you seeing more women entering?
Yeah, we actually are. I mean, it was 7 or 8% in the industry, 2 or 3% in the trades, women, that is. And so, I think we're seeing that women, number one, will accept this type of work. And number two, that the industry will accept them. We have a shortage, and so if you're skilled, you're willing to work hard as a man. Matter if you're man, woman, black, white, Hispanic. We're willing to bring you into the industry, and so I think we are seeing that trend that it's more acceptable for a woman to get into the trades, and certainly we serve that underserved diversity. We lack diversity in the industry, certainly in the trades, and so we're bringing Black and Hispanic and Asians into this industry. We got to talk about immigration to solve this problem too, Dave. You know that. I mean, we got to figure out how we bring those trades, men and women, out of the shadows and be part of the industry in the right way. And so, if we work together, we can populate this industry, but we've got a long way to go.
There's so many great people doing so many great things. We were with NAHB in the student chapter last week in Saratoga Springs at the house that she built. Now, This is a really great story, Ed. One, not only, because it's women, and that shouldn't even be a conversation that a bunch of, women built this house, but they came from all over. The plumber came from Pennsylvania, and they're out there doing these amazing things. Has her own YouTube channel and just loving the marketing behind it. But it was a beautiful house, and the story behind the whole home is there's a place for everybody, whether you want to do it through higher education or do it, from the labor perspective. You want to be a framer, or a carpenter, a finished carpenter. I was talking to a finished carpenter, and they were on this project. She had to do some rough carpentry, and I said, "What do you like better, the rough carpentry or the finish?" She goes, "I really sucked at rough carpentry." Going, well, you would think you'd be really good at rough carpentry if you're a finished carpenter, right?
Yeah, but right. Yeah,
I think it's an amazing thing.
I think professional women in building under NHB, they have come so far in the last 15 years by promoting what their value is, and what they're contractors, they're home builders, they're carpenters, and so there is a movement to bring more women into the industry. You don't have to just be in sales and marketing in this industry. If you're a woman, you can get out on the job. You can be that general contractor and home builder, and there are a lot of successful women in this industry, and they're doing some good things to draw more and more women into the industry.
Super successful, all the way up to other people that are production home builder CEOs on public companies.
That's right.
There's a place, and we need more. We'll go further, faster, with more diversity, more women within our industry. All right, I love it. So why don't we hop into this? Why don't we bring Greg Ugalde in? I know he's champing at the bit there behind the scenes, and let's talk about the relationship between HBI and NAHB. What do you think?
That'd be great. We're great partners.
There he is. Hey, what's happening, Mr. Ugalde? Welcome back in.
Thank you. Very good conversation, by the way. You know, you could see that when we talked about the synergy that we could create here, when you look at the work that you do, Dave, with Jen and Dave Cooper Live, bringing in this education piece now to offsite and all the work that you're doing, trying to promote, there's just such a nice connection and path that we have to build here. You know, Ed mentioned it. We have between 300 and 350,000 job openings in our industry. We have to get those filled in order for us to all be successful. And I think, you know, there's not one talk that we give that the young professionals aren't mentioned and professional women in building. Those are our two growth areas and that we hit on all the time. But Ed, why don't you talk a little bit about how we found that since HBI has had to, being the nonprofit and bringing the curriculum into the high schools and working more directly that way, how nice it is that we're all working under one roof. And even mention the housing endowment as well, the National Housing Endowment.
Yeah, well, it's a three-legged stool partnership with NHB and NHB being the mothership, and they have the members, they have the advocacy at the federal government and state government, and NHB. This industry, frankly, wouldn't be where it is today without NAHB and the advocacy that they promote. But as they founded us, we partner with them now at the local levels, at student chapters, Dave, you mentioned, at the individual school districts who want to bring a curriculum in. We'll go in and we'll help partner with them to educate those CTE instructors as to what curriculum we have. Our curriculum, by the way, was totally designed and built and updated by members of the residential construction industry. So we're training a curriculum that is useful every day. And as you talk about innovation, we have to update that all the time with smart technology and innovative approaches. And so that partnership with NAHB and the interaction is critically important. NAHB granted, frankly, $500,000 to us over the last 3 years so that we could get and really kickstart our Schools to Skills program, getting our curriculum back into the high schools. And without that, we wouldn't be where we are today. And we're just going to issue another 80 licenses to get back into 80 new high schools, or 80 new school districts, I should say, over 100 high schools. And then you add NHE, which is NHB's philanthropic endowment, and what they're doing with job and career fairs and bringing young people in to get them interested, providing scholarships for those that are going to four-year college to get into the construction industry. So and we partner with obviously a lot of industry leaders as well. Home Depot Foundation is a huge supporter of HBI. They fund our transitioning military. RWC, we're partnering with. American Standard HVAC, we're partnering with. So we're trying to bring more and more industry into it, so that we help ourselves. And I was, as chairman, and Greg knows this, as you travel the country, you kind of become preachers, right? You got to preach to the choir, and the choir is, you got to help yourselves. If you don't, nobody else is going to do it. And so that three-legged stool partnership of NAHB, NAHE, the National Housing Endowment, and HBI, I think is having a real impact on the industry.
Yeah, I think it really is. And even with this, we've been working with the student chapter, and it's been wonderful. I would see that, they're so tied to their local community, all these universities, and they have all their sub campuses across the country. I bet they could open up more doors into the high schools, with the program for that education and all that. So I think that's a match made in heaven right there.
Dave, let's try this for a second. Tell Ed about how the colleges are using your show and your platform to help teach the kids now. How many touches they have on all your material that's on YouTube and everything else.
Yeah, so right now our YouTube channel is watched about 24 hours a day nonstop, so which is great. But the universities, which we didn't know, Ed, when we started down this path, before COVID, 6 days a week, where are we going with this? We know there's a need for it, and then as it started working out, the universities, Eric Holt, University of Denver, Tuskegee University, Purdue, all across the country started reaching out saying, hey, we're using your information as part of our classroom work. Our kids are studying and seeing what's happening, because everything about this show is how cool our industry is. Where is the innovation? We don't want to talk to the people that are doing it the same old way. We're an industry that hasn't changed in over 100 years, and that just does not make sense. And it's not sustainable. And that's really been, we started getting the video testimonies from the professors saying, hey, Dave Cooper, we want you to come out here and come to our show or come to our university and do your show. We were just at the student decathlon winners at the university 2 weeks ago on campus with them. And here's what's great about the students. I don't even know if I told you this, Greg. We were in there and it was like anything else. They were having our show set up in the business center at the University of Boulder, Colorado. And the funny thing was we couldn't get in. I'm like, we got 20 minutes. That's not enough time to set up all the equipment and all this. And the one student walks up and he goes, you know, I'm a solar decathlon winner. Open the door.
It's the best.
I love it. But see, that's the pride that they start feeling when they become part of something. And there's so much to showcase and so much to do. So, Greg, I appreciate letting me toot our horn a little bit on that. But I think
that's important.
We got to get to them.
Well, that promotional side, the informational side. I mean, young people. Maybe me even sometimes, 30-second sound bites. You got to get in there. You got to give them some attention. You got to let them know where to go to find out more information, and eventually will resonate with them. So everything you're doing, promoting the industry and promoting innovation and technology, it's not the way it was done 100 years ago. It is an innovative, progressive industry to join.
Yeah, for sure it is. Go ahead, Greg.
I was going to say, you don't have to talk to Ed very long to see he's like the guy to be doing this right now, right? I mean, the passion's there, but also the information and knowing how to bring all these parts together is so key, because around the country, we are literally starting to try to resurrect shop, if you will. Ed had mentioned, and you were talking about this, but when we travel to these high schools and I judge a lot of the student competitions, and that I'm the MC for the big award ceremony at IBS, that big week where there's 800 to 900 screaming parents and kids getting their awards, and they've just competed for a week. But all of this now is teaching people, again, as you were saying, that you got to be able to work with your hands. It's honorable. Skip some of the student debt. Show up to your class reunions in the new car with a new house and no debt. Now who's in charge, right? Now who's the big dog? And that's where we're headed with a lot of these things. And it's starting to catch on, and you can feel it. Yeah,
I got to say something. I probably wasn't supposed to do this, Dave, but we just acquired HBI. That is acquired, as Greg suggested, is how to bring everybody together. But the Florida Home Builders created a Future Builders of America brand many years ago, 15 years ago. And HBI just acquired that brand. And we have rolled it out, and we're continuing to move forward in Florida. But ultimately, doesn't Future Builders of America resonate to those young students? That's a goal that I want to be. And we were cooperating and working with the student chapters at NAHB, and every student chapter in Florida is an FBA chapter and vice versa. So as we work together, legislators hear that, Future Builders of America. As you
absolutely
workforce boards around the country with all the displaced workers because of COVID and the pandemic, and trying to get adult learners and upskill them or reskill them into an industry that we're starving for good people, is resonating. And it's resonating to things like what you're doing, the things that Greg's traveling the country, and they see a successful business person come in like Greg and say, I can be him someday. We're taking plumbers to the shop classes, and plumbers have all the toys. They have the boats and the houses, and we have land as builders. Greg knows we have inventory and land. We don't have the toys.
Right.
Successful business people, men and women in this industry, and if you can sell that, then we're going to make it. We're going to make the impact we need to build what we need in this country.
Yeah, for sure. And you're absolutely right. Plumbers and electricians. I always say if I come back in another life, I'm going to be a plumber or electrician because they have several houses, land, all the toys. One even does funny cars, and that's probably 5,000 in gas down the strip one time now.
That's right.
That I've run
That's
into.
right.
But with all of this, Ed, comes the technology. It is changing. We got digital twins. We're using lasers to make sure our foundations are square and level. We're using lasers to make sure, even in the off-site world, where we can go out and shoot a foundation, go back to the manufacturing facility, and make adjustments on the fly. Parametric design, generative design. So there's all these different pieces that not only tie in from the engineering and architectural side of this, but it flows all the way down to the person on the job site managing this information, air barrier specialists, all these different things that are happening.
That's right.
There's a place for everybody. And what's funny about what we've been learning on our trip and our show is whether you're a college student or you're in the field, as a general contractor or what have you, there's so much collaboration happening.
Yeah.
And it's quite amazing how it's all coming together.
Yeah, it is. Again, you're shooting transoms to set first floor walls or using transoms. I mean, that kind of technology wasn't there 35 years ago.
Right.
All we did was use that to lay out the grade or something to that effect. And they're using robotics in drywall finishing. There's a lot more mechanical devices to take away the heavy lift that you have to, again, bringing more women into the industry for that reason, that it doesn't have to be as physicality strained. But the products, you hit it, the products that you put out. Greg has been really champion this housing affordability issue. And so, there's a builder down in Texas that does a lot of work with us, and he says their carry for every day to build a house is $500 every day. So if that house is delayed 30 days because you can't find a framing carpenter to get on that foundation or that slab, it costs you, $15,000 to carry that house. So everything that Greg's trumpeting, that we're trumpeting on, the labor is 30 or 40% in a house. So I think we really have to think about this innovation and how we do it quicker, which again looks at those panelizations, modularizations, factory built. Those things are a big part of the industry in order to provide the product. I've seen affordable housing projects go up like Legos. They're stacking on top of each other, and so you can put them together quicker. You can put them together less expensively, and so we have to continue to develop. And we have, quite frankly, as an industry, I think we've been slow to that. We know we've got to catch up. We know we've got some work to do, but I think we are working towards that.
Oh, you're going to get me on my soapbox, and believe me, I have a soapbox here. And you mentioned making it easier for women, and younger people coming in with offsite construction. Tiffany McCall had a great question, so why don't we just ask that while we're here? Tiffany says, do the education programs you provide include offsite construction methods for the job sites? Are you currently talking about this within the HBI program?
So we're training the technology. We're training the basic fundamentals. And like you guys know, much of the on-the-job training is critical to being productive. But we're training things like smart homes wiring off-site. Most of our training, by the way, is off-site. We're in a lab, if you will. We're in a construction lab, and then we do a lot of on-site training. But if you're talking factory built and stuff like that, some of the same technologies or same trades that we're teaching in our classrooms and in our shops are what they're using in those precision builds on the truss manufacturers or the panelization manufacturers. So we have to train all of that, because that student might go to work for a panelization company factory, or they may go out on the job and be a stick builder, or they may be in the factory putting the plumbing in that paneled wall or that manufactured. So a lot of it's the same. Code is a code. You gotta plumb the house by code. And so we are trading some of those things. Now we're we're at the beginning levels, so we're entry level to that pre-apprenticeship is what we call ourselves, and many of our students will opt out of a year of an apprenticeship, so they're advanced, but getting that in on the job training is relatively important.
Ed, that was a great question from our immediate past chair of Building Systems Committee.
Tiffany McCall,
yeah.
And
Yeah.
Oh, so
you answered it well.
Set me up, was she? Okay. I got it.
Yeah, no. Hey, listen, Building Systems Council, you got, she's doing her job. I love it.
Hugely important to the industry.
Yeah. Well, we're seeing a lot of change, and on this journey, we're going to a lot of factories that are making these changes. And what's interesting, Ed, is we're seeing a ton of tech companies come into this space, fintech and regular tech, Silicon Valley, behind the scenes. I mean, there's so much being built across the country right now that are looking at different ways to try and tackle the affordable housing crisis. So let's, Tom Hardiman has a question for you both. Tom Hardiman is the CEO of the Modular Home Builders Association and Modular Building Institute. Tom says, hi, guys. Is it always going to be a sales job to get more young people involved in construction? Are there any federal policy changes you support that might help address labor shortages?
Yeah, well, the one thing I'll tell you we're working on, Tom, is I don't think it will always be the biggest sale in town, because I think we are making that impact that you can make a good living in this industry, and the alternative to high debt and low paying jobs to a career in the industry is attractive. Number one, the policies that we're trying to protect, especially with this new administration, quite frankly, we're in the residential construction industry. That's what we promote. And this is an organized labor administration. And so we're going to make sure that they don't forget this pre-apprenticeship, that they don't forget this entry level.
Right.
That's all well and good, and we need that, especially if we get an infrastructure bill. They're going to steal more and more of our residential construction workers. But what we're trying to advocate is to make sure that they keep funding, they put more funding into that entry level, into the industry, into the high schools, in the secondary, into learning at community colleges. We have to have that before we can reach the level of skilled labor in this country. And so we're continuing to protect those funding sources. And Greg, I know on the NAHB side, you guys are advocating, we are advocating for everything.
Yeah, and it's a great question, because, just back to the marketing piece, a lot of that's going to take care of itself. We know that's something you're going to see, that when you remember when we used to compare our peers, what college are you going to? Oh, what job do you have coming out of college? Once people see the advantages that we're able to offer, there's a lot of people now that are entrepreneurial and that really have that business spirit and want to run something. Our industry is an incubator for that, like there's none other. That's what we offer.
Yeah, but look at what NHB did with just keeping us essential during this. NHB, along with the states and the locals.
Yes.
Our businesses are thriving today because we were essential to this economy, and so we'll build almost 2 million units this year. We're on a path to build 2 million units. A lot of industries suffered. And so the advocacy work and the legislative advocacy that NHB has done and our industry continues to do has kept us in the forefront.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what? One of the things I'll mention, just we're talking about policies to answer that question. So we were in front of the Federal Reserve Board of Governors. So Ed, we had our annual meeting that we go to. So we meet with Chairman Powell and we hear how the monetary policy in this country is going to affect our industry. And we advocate and let them know that, yes, of course, we hit on lumber and those other issues. But at the end of the day, they need to be able, when they look at their interest rate environment and they look at possible inflation, but they need to guard against making too many severe moves that might affect housing as an industry. We're the main part of this economic engine right now that continues to grow and thrive, even though we have the supply chain issues that we face.
Yeah. Very much so. Listen, I mean, Greg, even where our neck of the woods up in Connecticut, our middle school actually brought back workshops with real tools, right, and turned it into a whole media thing with the students. So, we're starting to see it slowly come back into it as well.
Yes.
Let's go to the comments here, Greg. I want to. Andrew Wilkinson put up a comment. I'm going to have to read this one. There's a lot here. Dave and Ed, getting the youth into the industry requires companies from building sector open their doors, along with government to assist with the training. This also should be towards ex-servicemen, women, and prisoners who want to change their lives. Bring in pop-up factories. All right. So that's one of the things that's starting to happen across the country now. What's that? That's
a good comment.
Well, I tell you, pop-up resonates because we have these academies that we're starting to build, and they're little schools, 12,000 square foot boxes that train 700, 800, 1,000 students a year and put them into the industry in partnerships with the HBAs in Orlando and Houston and Phoenix and Charlotte and New Orleans. But we have these pop-ups. So you have that big box, but then you'll have this pop-up where you go out to a developer in Denver. You fence in a lot, you put a trailer on it, and you train 10 to 12, 15 students. And every Wednesday morning or every Wednesday at lunch, another subcontractor comes in, feeds them lunch. They all have jobs before they're done. They all have jobs. And so those pop-ups and spreading this throughout the country is really how we're going to make this difference. And they're advocating it at the large builders and the custom builders. And as long as we continue to blow that horn, I think we will continue to have that perception change. But it also starts with parents. We have to start with parents and what you're doing and promoting the industry and the good paying jobs and the counselors. So I said early in the conversation, it's a slow burn, but we're making an impact.
Well, that's it. Being in the trades is cool, right, Greg? I mean, it's cool.
That's right.
Saying you're a plumber, saying you're an electrician's cool. Like you said earlier, Greg, I have no debt. I'm making $60,000 a year coming out of my apprentice training or what have you. Some places even double that because they can't find people. It's a cool place to be now, and I think that's going to change. Go ahead, Greg. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No. So one of the things I was going to say, though, Dave, we're trying to tie all this in together, how all the pieces work. Yep. So we just had the great discussion about what these delays cost, especially if labor is you're unable to move at the pace you want. All those delays cost money. You lay on top of that where lumber is today. The latest and greatest are scary. We are adding, just with the increases year over year, we are adding 300%. So the average extra incremental cost is $36,000 added to the price of a home and $13,000 for every apartment unit. So think about that. Think about those increases. We have this data that we just did last week where in last May, there was a quote on a lumber package for a typical 3,100 square foot home. And that quote came in about $39,000. Right now, on Friday, it was $103,000. Think about that increase. Guess where that slab is? That has to be ready to go with labor. So as soon as you pull a plug, you can't afford to have all these other costs. That's just one commodity, materials and everything else. So when you look at the construction being a certain percentage, when we have 30-40% is labor, think about materials. That's an enormous part. So we need everything to work together and drive down the cost. Housing affordability is so key. And when we're going to wrap up, I'll conclude with a stat that I think is going to keep everybody thinking till your next show, Dave.
I love it. Well, you're absolutely right. With the rise of lumber costs, the lack of skilled labor, right? There's labor out there, but we have a lack of skilled labor. These pop-up factories that you mentioned, Ed, I think are very pertinent. But when you tie all of this together, what is the solution, Greg? How are we going to make homes affordable? Because right now, one, gas and oil is through the roof as well, and it takes all of that to get this stuff to where it's going. We have lumber through the roof. We're not having enough skilled trades to do it, and our workforce is aging out at a high number, for salaries and all that, because they're having to stick around longer to help the builders that they've been with all these years. How do we use, the tools that we have to make housing more affordable, to build more houses for people that can afford it, right? Think about that. Who can afford a $30,000? You're not affording a $100,000 house or even a $300,000 house.
That, and one of the things, Ed, and I'll let you discuss this too, but one of the scary things is that you look at all those issues that we face and that you were just laying out for us. That's why this industry, offsite construction, holds a lot of keys. There's so much potential there where you can take this, and you talk about pop-up training. How about the ability to control the environment? All the things that we talk about, the purchasing power, everything under in certain group together, all of these concerns, you could get a much better product that way. But go ahead, Ed, you had something to add.
Well, I was just going to say, I remember when you talk about price of lumber, Greg, my dad used to come on the job site and make me crawl into the dumpsters to get a 2x4 with nails in it, pull the nails out so I could. Yeah. Can you imagine him? You imagine him today? You could get a bullion with a bunk of studs. I mean, it's incredible, and I think it's cyclical. Look, it's a supply and there's a lot of issues. There's a supply and demand. There's a lack of labor. If we continue to advocate for housing affordability and affordable housing, we're going to have an impact. NAHB is having an impact today. You're getting letters from Congress. We're getting letters from to the Secretary of Commerce. It will eventually come down. Interest rates will eventually go up, and so it's a balance, right? But we have to continue to put the pressure on training a workforce that can build them. Innovative approaches to where we build a better product. I remember they were only making 4x8 sheets of OSB. Now they're making 4x9 sheets, so you don't have that waste. So you can go over the box sill. You don't have that infiltration. So we're slow, I would say, but we're coming better at innovative approaches and less waste. As Greg says, offsite is a climate control, less waste. Pretty automated, not automated, totally automated, but it's a pretty automated system to where precision. They don't build manufactured housing like they used to. My dad used to say as well. But look at this. Clayton Homes, biggest manufactured home builders in the country or maybe world, is buying up stick builders now. They own a bunch of stick builders. And so that's a collaboration. Berkshire Hathaway, by the way, owns. So there's technology in this industry, and it's filtering down into the industry as we go. Yeah.
Well, Ed, I'm sorry, but you got my soapbox now. Here we go. I got to give you my soapbox. Listen.
Let's hear it.
I've been saying this, Greg. Jerry from Integra said this, and I think it resonates very well. The precision in offsite construction is like no other. You cannot cut the same 2x4 across the toe of your boot the same way on 1,000 studs in each house, but you can in a factory environment. The best offsite manufacturers in the world is NASA. Could you imagine the astronauts getting to the spaceship and it says field verify? Right? Think about these things. So the technology's there. We've just been slow to adopt it, right? With BIM and digital twins and all of this stuff. And I think if we are going to meet this affordable housing crisis, some of these new people coming on in our industry and these modular worlds are going to be putting out a lot of great product to help gain some speed. Plus, it gives them controlled labor costs. It gives them controlled lumber costs because they buy by the train load. So that's my soapbox. I'll get off.
Well, I think it's a combination. I think it's a good soapbox to be on, but I also think I'll keep my day job that I have to train that skilled labor every day that's on the job site building stuff. Right. As well as in the factories. So if we work together, we'll meet the need.
Well, that's it. It's not going to be one or the other. It's going to be both, definitely. For sure. For sure. Yeah. I love it. All right. So, Greg, here we are, man. We're having so much fun. It's already 52 minutes. Can you believe it? Time flies. Ed, why don't you stick around with us, Ed? We've been having a good time here with this.
Yeah, we'll just. Yeah, that's perfect. In fact, Dave, let me start right in on that, because I think it'll be a good way for us to segue here too, because it affects everything that we're talking about.
Yeah.
And Ed will appreciate this too. So Dr. Dietz, he's our economist, right? He's one of the best in the country. They rely on him all the time. Rob Shop puts together stats that everybody uses, from the White House, the administration, to the Fed, everybody. So he had me and my talking points last week for the Fed, and then at the Mortgage Roundtable. I have a stat that's really unbelievable. So what their shop did is they took the average price of a home around the country, which right now is at about $340,000. Okay, that's the average new construction home in the country. Now, here's where it starts getting tough. They wanted to find out the percentage of households that can afford to purchase that home. You know how we always talk about, for every $1,000 that the purchase price increases, we lose 154,000 households out of the market? Okay, well, here we go. 340,000 average price. Right now, 56% of Asian households can afford that. Just over half, that's it, can afford the average home. White households is 44%. Hispanics, 32%. And African American, only 24% of their households can afford the average home in this country. Now, why is that so alarming? As we talk about housing affordability, and as Ed said, that was my mantra my year as chair, and we continue it to this day because it's so critical. Housing affordability, with all of these aspects, in today's topic of workforce development, is front and center. We need to be able to attack this in a uniform and a constructive way, and we need to be able to start grabbing control of some of these fears that our industry has, and we need to be able to house our country in an affordable, safe manner. And that's what it's all about.
Yeah, it really is. And I think that the collaboration, and we always go back to this, it's going to be about the collaboration. It's going to be about bringing in the youth and what they're doing into our workforce, because their great minds are going to help us achieve greatness, right? It happens in every generation, and it needs to happen now in our industry, because that's what's going to drive everything we're doing forward. Greg, what are we doing on the financial side of this? I know you had a mortgage roundtable. Why don't you tell us about that?
So a couple of the things we have, today we have 10 companies from Alabama going up on Capitol Hill. But what we did, we always have a Builders Day at the Capitol, right? And we bring everybody into DC, and it's a terrific day. One of the things that we've done now, though, is we mix in, especially with the pandemic, we have bringing housing home. And that's where everybody gets their HBAs and their locals together, and you, in the more comfortable confines, back in your own state. So that's what's happening. And, front and center, the supply chain issues, right? So we talked about lumber. I mean, you got to order appliances, windows, resin, all these things. I mean, just anything, clamps for your garages for some of the code requirements. Everything now, if you could drive yourself crazy, you can start stockpiling beyond out of control if you're not careful. So we have all of those concerns. I do think we have an understanding of how important it is to keep interest rates working with us rather than against us. And I think that we'll see, if there is any increase to help battle against inflation a little bit, it'll be a very slow creep. But we really need to watch that, because again, keep your mind on that. For every $1,000 number, how many households we lose. So we have constant efforts going on. There's so many day when somebody in our industry wakes up and they have a fire hose coming straight at them, and you're trying to fight to get through. That's where we are. We've seen demand, especially I know in Ed's home state, Illinois, and in the Northeast, we battle. We never really broke out. Dave, you know this. Back home in Connecticut, for the first time, we're starting to be able to see sales happen. But, there's still a lot of difficulty even in that. Trying to be able to meet the demand is not easy. So what does that mean? That means everybody's bidding up prices, where we have to be careful. So, you have a modest home and it's still impossible to bid because it's, you're going to have a bidding war. So there's still a lot of headwinds that face us, but at the end of the day, we are still building homes. We are trying our best to be able to control the commodities and get out in front of it. But today's show was a big piece of really such one of the biggest issues that we face, and one of the areas where we can make the biggest difference as we move forward is with workforce development.
Yeah, definitely. So workforce is really where it's at. I think it's so needed in our industry. Ed Brady, I mean, you're out there leading the charge on a lot of this, which I think is awesome. I have Jerry McCaw. He must have been listening to me from Integra. I mentioned the whole. I gave you credit, Jerry, just so you know. I said Jerry said this.
You gave him a footnote.
Right?
You footnoted it.
About Field Verify. But Jerry really is pushing the way and has a lot of young people working for him, which is absolutely amazing. He says, as always, great discussion. Let me go in here. I don't know what he says. Give me 1 second. He actually made a comment suggestion. Why is not Galley king about using innovation that makes existing skilled workers more productive and lengthen the lifespan of the current experienced workforce? So I think what he's talking about is offsite construction. He's in the panelization side of the world. If you don't know Jerry, offsite construction does lengthen the lifetime for workforce out there because of those reasons. Yeah.
Dave, mention that show, Ed, that we had that Jerry was involved in, the three of us. That was pretty interesting. Yeah. Why we face some issues, Ed, some of the difficulties that we have in really expanding great percentage of offsite construction. And I think we are starting to overcome many of them. Many of the hurdles you're going to see because of all these headwinds. There's a natural progression that's going to happen here.
Yeah. With all these conversations, why aren't we talking about more innovation that makes existing skilled, laborers give them more work or bring new work in? I think, we really, outside of just the skill itself, we need to speak their language. That's why we're on Twitch. We need to speak their language and say, hey, there's some really cool stuff here. Yeah, we still need people to nail nails and hammer and carry and all these other things. But there's places, there's all kinds of places for every one of them, for every one of these skills. And I think innovation is going to be something we can use to get their attention.
Yeah, I want to say I couldn't agree more that we have to delve into that. We have to train skilled workforce to go into those factories and those manufactured facilities. Yeah. Our newest curriculum is solar panel installation. So that's another innovative approach that takes more labor, takes manpower, women power to get out there and approach solar panel installation, because of the millions of homes out there that are going to adapt to solar panel installation. And updating our housing inventory is also part of the skilled workforce. I mean, so it may not just all be homes, building new homes, it's renovating new homes. It's installing new products. It's so again, I go back to, this is a partnership. This isn't his or hers or we or they. This is a collaborative effort to provide that product, provides housing affordability throughout the country. And I think we should support each other as we move forward to create more innovative approaches and more efficiencies on building that product.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you look at the DOE and others that are doing programs, Energy Sprung, where you mentioned the retrofitting the older homes that are out there, or renovating them and what have you. So there's all kinds of different things happening, and it's gonna take everybody in this industry, especially with the deficit that we have today, especially with the lumber prices and everything going through the roof. I mean, it's 100% a whole collaboration that needs to happen. Ed, Greg, what do you have for us here? You got anything? Some final thoughts?
Yeah, I think it was great. I mean, it really was. One of the things, so we see how we're starting to even lose pace in a lot of American buyers, right? So we see a lot of the headwinds that we've talked about. Workforce development, we really are making great strides, have to continue to do so. One of the things that I'll just conclude with is saying, Ed, remember your year as chairman, one of the things that you were known for is you issued a challenge to all the senior officers. He said, we're going to get to every state. We're going to go to all 50 states. And our group of senior officers that year, we've continued that effort because that's the type of messaging that we need on these issues that we talked about today. You have to, it was mentioned about, is it always going to have to be selling and do it? No, it will. Once we get it rolling and once we start addressing these concerns, it is cyclical, but these points are much easier to make when you have a lot more people uniformly bringing that message forward. And that's what we have to keep up. That's why a show like this helps so much.
That's right.
Yeah. And Ed, listen, everything that you and, you're the leader, but there's a lot of people on your team that are out there really making this happen, reaching out to the youth, the incarcerated, the veterans. I mean, I'd like to think you're doing all of that, but my guess is there's a big team behind you of people that have to make this happen.
I like to say, Dave, I'm the cheerleader. I promote what we do, but the teams, from the instructors in the local schools to community colleges to our prison programs, those instructors, we're suffering to find good instructors, quite frankly, because there's the industry so successful right now to bring somebody off the field and into the classroom, and our instructors are aging out as well. But from our instructors, design technicians that are building the curriculum to our safety protocols, it's a team effort throughout the country at HBI, and it's a collaborative team effort in the industry. We want to bring the Cokes and Pepsis of this industry, and you probably know who I'm talking about. We want to bring them together. We want to bring the West Fraser and Norbord is a huge supplier or supporter of ours. I know the lumber issue today, but they're supporting the workforce development. We got to bring everybody together to fix these problems, and we'll be successful.
Yeah.
Great.
I agree. All right. So listen, we started doing something new. All right. Well, it's not that new. Ed, I'm going to ask you, what is your one thing? What is the one thing that we can all do, or you do on a regular basis, that's going to help us drive this industry forward?
Well, I would say this. I would say getting out there and preaching and prophetizing the profession, prophetizing what the industry is. Greg said it earlier. We're driving this economic engine going on right now. This industry, without this industry, up until the last recession, this industry has driven us out of recessions, and so we're such a huge component of the economic engine that this country has. And so we just got to, those leaders have to continue to promote it on a wide scale basis from your social medias. And you caught me off guard. Obviously, I wasn't the generation that you were talking to, because early on I didn't know where I would find the young people, but you've taught me something. So we have to continue to do that. I think that's the one thing we have to work together and continue to collaborate this message and get into the rural areas and get into the urban areas and sell our industry.
Yeah. Well, listen, you're not the only one who doesn't know who Twitch is. I bring it up for everybody on the show.
Oh, yeah.
One person said, because we love Twitch. He had no idea what it was.
Yeah.
So
I could have gone there, but I didn't know what it was.
I love it. All right, Greg, give us your one thing for this week on what we can do, and then we're going to wrap it up.
You know what? Being a shameless apple polisher here, but I really think we have to support Jennifer and Dave here because, and I mean that. It's and you know that we do our best on these updates and bringing Ed along, but the more people we get working on this team and work toward getting that message out, it's critical. Being able to have people refer people. Oh, Dave and Greg on Dave Cooper Live. It's such a big tool in our industry, and the more that people catch on and learn from it, the better off we're going to be.
I love it. Thank you so much for that. And you're right. And if you're young out there and you're watching this, you're in high school, just walk up to a job site and ask if you can help. You will be surprised at what happens. And if it's a commercial job site, you'll even be more surprised the amount of jobs they have. Who knows? Maybe you'll find yourself going up a 20-story elevator one day, on the outside of a building. I've always wanted to do that. You got any connections there? All right. Listen, everybody, thank you so much for tuning in today. Ed Brady, Home Builders Institute. We're really happy to have you on. Thank you for all the hard work that you're doing. Greg Ugalde, NAHB, immediate past chairman. I don't know how many times I should say that, but have a little fun with it. But listen, we are going to change the way we build. We're done being in last place. We're going to go to the next level. The trades are going to come back together with all the youth and all the knowledge. We will be the Tesla moving forward, I say. Let's let the Teslas charge our house. And if you're listening, Elon Musk, don't come after me. I'm just having fun. We'll see you later, everybody. Have a good one.
Thanks,
Greg. I'll see you in a
Bye
minute.
now.
Just stick tight with us there.